In this video, I'm going to show you how to DJ. I'm going to show you exactly how to mix two tracks together with perfect timing. You can also download the tracks that I use in this video completely for free, so you can follow along exactly as I do with the exact same tracks. If that sounds good to you, let's get into it. Alright, so if you go to the description of this video, you should find a link to be able to download the free tracks that I'm going to use in this video. Once you've downloaded them, you should get a folder just like this one that if you click into, there should be 2 free tracks. What we need to do now is go into our DJ software, make sure that we're in playlists, which is the second icon down just here. Then just online with playlists, just click the plus icon, which will create a new playlist, and just name it whatever you like. So I've just named it How to DJ. Then what we need to do is go back to our folder, highlight both these 2 tracks, and just simply drag them over into the blank playlist. Now they should be analysed by your DJ software and it should get them ready to DJ with. From here now, we just need to drag the track It's Been a While over on the left hand side on deck 1 and the track Baby Baby over on the right hand side on deck 2. Now in this video tutorial, I will be using Rekordbox DJ software and also the Pioneer DDJ FLX4 to demonstrate the techniques on. But if you're using different DJ software and a different DJ controller, you should be able to follow along still with the DJ techniques and principles I'm going to teach you. If you are on Rekordbox and your screen doesn't quite look like mine, just a couple of things you might want to change if you want it looking similar. Just go to the top left hand corner here and the second option across, there's just a couple of lines. Select this and you want 2 deck horizontal. And then also if you go into settings or preferences as it's called in Rekordbox, then go to view, then go to color along the top here. And then on waveform color, just select RGB, which stands for red, green and blue. Then your software should look something similar to this. Now the first thing we need to check is that the tracks have been analyzed correctly. So you need to put your tempo faders on both decks to 0, which is in the middle. And just check the track on the left hand side, It's Been a While, is at 130 BPM and the track Baby Baby is at 128 beats per minute. You also need to make sure that there is a grid line marker right at the very start of each track, just like this, preferably with a red marker on as well. So the start of your track looks like this. Let me zoom in slightly so you can see it a bit more. So you can see here it's got a white grid line marker at the start of both tracks. If you've got all those things, we should be ready to go. Now the first thing that I'm going to cover when it comes to learning how to DJ, and in my opinion one of the most important things that you need to understand when learning to DJ is what I call the rule of 32. This means that generally every 32 beats in a track you'll hear a significant change where a sound is added or taken away. Now before we get on to counting the 32 beat blocks, first we need to understand what a beat actually is. A beat is a measurement of time. It is not a sound. Often people can get confused with a beat being a sound because in dance music, usually every beat there is a kick drum. If we have a look at the grid lines here on both tracks, we can see these white lines. These are the beats. And if we look at the top track here, we can see that this red waveform is a kick drum, and at the start of every kick drum, there is a beat grid marker. So this is why sometimes you can get confused with people thinking that a beat is a kick drum, but it's not, it's actually a measurement of time. So if I press play on the track on the left hand side now, you can hear a kick drum every beat, and you can also see it happen on every white line. However, if I go to a part in the track where there are no kick drums, we can still see that these white lines continue. So if we listen here, so you can still hear the track continue, but there are no drums, there's no kick drums, but we still have the beats continuing. This is important because what we're going to do now with the track on the right hand side is count in 32 beat blocks. We're going to count to 32, and when we get to 32, we're going to start again from 1. And as we do this, I want you to listen out for the changes in the tracks at these points. Listen for sounds being added and taken away from the track, and this is going to be very important later when we come to timing our tracks and mixing them together. I'm going to put the numbers up on the screen. I'm also going to quietly count in the background. If you want to count along, feel free to do so. So you ready? 3, 2, 1. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 21, 22, 23, 24, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 21, 22, 25, 26, 27, 28, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. 1, 2,
Baby, could you let me know I'm on your mind? A girl like me is hard to find. Oh, baby, don't know back tonight.
25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Alright, so there you go. As we counted along with that track then, hopefully you can hear how the track changes every 32 beats. Now we can call these 32 beat blocks phrases. So as a general rule, 32 beats equals one phrase. Now, like I've just said, this is a general rule to follow. I just want to be clear that not all phrases are 32 beats long. Sometimes you can have shorter phrases in a track. So for example, 16 beats or even an 8-beat phrase. Now the reason why I generally use 32 beats equals one phrase is because this is the metric that you're going to come across most of the time when DJing. And it's the easiest way to remember it when first learning how to DJ and when you come to time your tracks together, which I'm going to show you very soon. So if you were to press play on any of these two tracks here and count along with the tracks or even one of your favorite tracks, you'll hear that the tracks generally have a change at these 32 beat blocks, which are called phrases. But if you just skip a further ahead on this track here, Baby Baby, where you can see on the full waveform there's a little bit of a green section here, this is one of the rarer 16 beat phrases. So you'll hear the track change after 16 beats instead of 32. So let's count along. So from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Then if you were to continue counting from there, it goes back to the 32 beat phrase structure. So when it first comes to learning how to DJ, this is how I teach my students how to count beats. And it's in 32 beat phrases. You basically just count from 1 to 32 and then start again from 1. But if you have watched other DJ tutorials, you might see that they count beats in a different way. What they actually do is count in terms of bars. These are 4 beat blocks instead of 32 beat blocks. So you might hear people counting something like this. 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, and so on. This is counted in terms of bars, and when counting like this, a 32 beat block will be 8 bars. Now personally, I don't like counting like this, especially when I teach my students. I find it's a little bit more confusing and a little bit harder to translate when it comes to timing 2 tracks together. And also, if you were to set, let's say, a loop on a track, which we used this function here, you can see it's done in 32 beats and not 8 bars. And I also like to use what's called beat jump a lot. So if I just change this hot cue down here to beat jump, you can also see that it's done in 32 beats just here instead of 8 bars. So there are 2 reasons as well why I like to count in 32 beat blocks instead of 4 beat bars. Now there isn't one right way or one wrong way, they are both correct, it's just whichever you might find easier. But for this video, I'm going to be counting in terms of 32 beat phrases and using that to demonstrate the techniques with. So just a quick summary before we move on. 32 beats equals one phrase. These are when you can find changes in a track when sounds are added or taken away. Now there can be shorter phrases of let's say 16 beats or 8 beats, but these are less common. Most of the time you're going to come across a 32 beat phrase, so this is what we're going to use moving forward. The next thing we need to understand when learning how to DJ is what significant sounds are. This is another thing that I have come up with to help my students understand what the different sounds are and to help them categorize them and understand which ones you can layer and which ones you cannot layer over the top of each other. So in general, there are 4 categories of sounds that you can find in a track. These are drums, bass, instruments, and vocals. Firstly, drums are basically any sounds that you can find on a drum kit. These are sounds such as kick drums, claps, hi-hats, and cymbals. So if you listen to the start of this track on the left-hand side, you'll hear the kick drums, the hi-hats, and the claps. And also the track on the right-hand side. Now, there's no kick drums, so there's no red waveforms, but you can hear the blue hi-hats and the green claps. So they're all drum sounds. Next we have the bass. This is the low frequency sounds that can have a pattern and a rhythm and change notes. So if you continue to listen to the track on the right hand side, Baby Baby, just here as the red waveform comes in, you should be able to hear the kick and the bass come in. So that's that womp, 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 the low frequency sounds. Next we have the instruments. This can be things such as the piano, saxophone, or even synths. They are artificial sounds that are made by a computer. So just at this point in the track as well, you can also hear a piano coming in. Dun, 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 dun. So that's the piano on top of the bass. The instruments generally make up the main melodic elements and the catchy parts of the track that you should be able to hum along to and you should be able to remember. And lastly, we have the vocals. This is obviously just when somebody's singing or rapping. So if we listen to the next bit of this track now, we should be able to hear just the piano, which is an instrument, and the vocals.
Oh baby, baby, could you let me know I'm on your mind? A girl like me is
And what we're going to do is separate these four sounds into two different groups. This is going to be non-significant sounds and significant sounds. In the non-significant sounds group, we're going to put all of the drums. That's the kicks, claps, and hi-hats. In the significant sounds group, we're going to put everything else, which is the bass, instruments, and vocals. And I'm going to explain now exactly why I've split them into two different groups just like this. Firstly, I've put the drums in the non-significant group because if you just listen to the drums of the track, you cannot really often tell what track it is. So if you listen to the start of this track on the left here, that is just the drums, and that can pretty much be any track. Now, another reason why drums are non-significant is that you can play drums over any part of another track and it shouldn't clash and sound bad. So for example, if we go to the start of the track here on It's Been a While, and we play these drums over any part of the track on Baby Baby, it shouldn't sound too bad. Shouldn't interfere with the main sounds of the track. Let's have a listen. Alright, so let's just press play over the top. Alright, so that doesn't sound too bad. Let's flick through the track. So it doesn't really interfere though. So if I stop this track on the left, it doesn't sound too bad. Let's try it again, let's press play. This is the reason why the start and the ends of tracks generally just have drums. This is so that you can mix them over the top of other tracks and slowly start to introduce that new track. So often the intros of tracks will only have drums. And this is why we're going to put them in the non-significant group. Now, on the other hand, in the significant sounds group with the bass, instruments, and vocals, these are different. Generally, when these sounds come in on a track, you will recognize the track instantly if you've heard it before. So for example, on the track It's Been a While, when it gets to the end of the drums and the vocals and instruments come in, you should be able to recognize it if you have heard it before.
It's been a while since I've seen your face. How you been?
Significant sounds can often have different notes, different patterns, and different rhythms, and you should be able to hum along or sing along to these parts of the track too. Whereas drum sounds are generally just one quick hit of sound that don't really change note and just stay consistent throughout the track. Now, the reason why I've explained all this about significant sounds, and this is another important thing that you need to understand when mixing two tracks together, is that you don't want two of the same significant sound playing at the same time. So for example, when DJing and mixing two tracks together, you don't want two bass lines from two different tracks playing at the same time. You don't want two instruments from two different tracks playing at the same time. You also don't want two vocals playing from two different tracks at the same time. This is one of the basic rules that you need to remember when first DJing and mixing tracks together. Now, as you get a little bit more advanced, you can mix two different significant sounds at the same time. So for example, you can have the bass line from one track mixed with the vocal from another track, or the instruments from one track mixed with the vocals from another track. This is how you can create mashups and other interesting mixes as well. But we will be getting ahead of ourselves doing that. That is more of an advanced DJing technique. For now, all you need to remember about significant sounds is that there are 4 different categories of sound that you might find in a track. There's drums, bass, instruments, and vocals. We're going to split these sounds into 2 groups, which is non-significant and significant. In the non-significant group, we're going to find all the drums. The important thing to remember about the drum sounds is that you can layer them over any part of another track and it won't sound bad. Then we have the significant sounds, which would be the bass, instruments, and vocals. And the important thing to remember with these is that you can't have 2 of the same significant sound playing at the same time. That would result in clashing and sounding bad to the audience when mixing 2 tracks together. Alright, so now that's all the theory out of the way, let's get on to some actual practical mixing and timing. Now, even though some people might think the theory is boring and they want to get straight on with the decks and get hands on, it is very important to understand them points that I've just gone over, as it will play a very important role when it comes to mixing your tracks together. And that will separate you from the beginner DJs that will just jump straight on the decks and press play randomly, which is exactly what we're going to cover now. First, before I show you how to actually time 2 tracks together for a perfect time mix, I'm going to show you 2 common mistakes that beginner DJs make so that you don't make them yourself and you can avoid them. Now, when it comes to timing, one of the first mistakes that I see beginner DJs make is they press play on the new track on the first beat of the drop or chorus. So let me just explain about that. Imagine the track on the left hand side is playing to the audience. We can see these green sections in the track and also the red sections. Basically, the green sections are breaks in the track, which means that it has no kick and bass. So it's basically literally a break in the track from dancing, because we usually dance to the kick and the bass of the song. And then the red sections are what's known as the drop sections, or the chorus, whatever you like to call it, which basically means it then has the kick and the bass introduced. So if we listen to this part here in the track, we'll hear it go from the break section into the drop section. So generally the mistake I see beginner DJs do is they'll wait till the last drop of the track and the first beat of the drop and then press play at this point on the new track and start mixing. So when it gets to here now, they'll press play on the other track like this and then start mixing. And I'm going to explain to you right now why that is not correct and you shouldn't be doing this every time. Now, one reason why I think beginner DJs do this is because it's very easy to spot this point in the track just here, looking at the waveform and also when listening to the track. Seems like a very obvious place and an easy place to press play on the next track to get your timing right. I have also seen online some other DJ tutors actually tell you to press play at this point every time and you'll get perfect timing, which is just not correct, and I'll explain why now. So when doing this, I'm just going to press sync on both tracks just to sync the tracks up, because I'm not really focusing on the beat matching element of this right now, it's just more the timing first. So let's do that timing and listen to see how it sounds. Alright, so it doesn't sound too bad at the minute because we've only got drums on the right hand side here. And as we know, we can layer drums over the top of any other part of the track. But let's listen to this part. What you might hear there is a bit of clashing from 2 basses playing at the same time and 2 instruments. And then what you can hear there is 2 vocals playing at the same time and 2 instruments. And then it kind of resolves itself there when it just comes into the outro beats. So hopefully you'll agree that that doesn't sound too good when timed that way. There's a lot of clashing of significant sounds where we have 2 of the same significant sound playing at the same time. There was 2 bass lines playing at the same time, 2 vocals, and also 2 instruments playing at the same time. The reason why these sounds clash and sound bad is because they were doing 2 different rhythms and the audience just won't know what to focus on. It just sounds like one big mess. Alright, so let's quickly now go over the second common mistake that I see beginner DJs make, is that they will press play at the start of the outro of the track. So the outro for me is when the drums are just by themselves and the significant sounds end. So that here on this track is just at this point. So we can hear now the track on the left hand side go from having significant sounds like instruments, bass and vocals, and it goes just into the drums. That is then the outro. Let's have a listen.
Just so you know you haven't been replaced, 'cause I still think of you now like nothing has changed.
So just at that point there, it goes from the drop section into the outro. And often I see beginner DJs press play here to make sure that then they don't have any sounds clashing and overlapping. But we'll have a listen to that mix now and see how that sounds and see if you think it sounds good.
Just so you know you haven't
So when it gets to the start of the outro, I'm going to press play on the track on the new track.
like nothing has changed.
So as you can hear there, there's just drums playing from both tracks. And then the significant sounds come in on the new track. We've got some bass line and instruments. Let it play out.
Oh, baby, baby, could you
And then nicely into the break of the new track. Now hopefully you'll agree the reason why that didn't sound great is because at one point for one phrase, which is 32 beats, in the middle of the mix there was no significant sounds for the audience to listen to or hook onto. It just had one phrase of just drums, which is not very entertaining, and that is where you can lose the energy on the dance floor and your mix can go a little bit flat. So what we've learned from that is that when we're mixing and blending two tracks together, we want to time it so that there's no significant sounds playing at the same time and clashing and overlapping, but we also don't just want drums by themselves, which can sound flat and lose energy on the dance floor. So how do we time our tracks to make sure we have the perfectly timed transition? So to get a perfectly timed basic mix, we want to time our tracks so that when one track's significant sounds end, the next track's significant sounds begin. So I'm just going to repeat that because it is very important. To get a perfectly timed basic mix, we want to time our tracks so that when one track's significant sounds end, the next track's significant sounds begin. Remember, significant sounds being bass, instruments, or vocals. Alright, so to do this, what we need to do is imagine this track on the left hand side. Now, it's been a while, it's playing to the audience, and we need to find where the significant sounds end on this track. So we've already established it's around this point here, where it goes from the drop section into the outro beats.
'Cause I still think of you now like nothing has changed.
So just there you can hear the significant sounds end right here at this point, which if we're looking at the bar numbers is 105.1. What I'm going to do is just set a hot cue here at this point, just so it will remind us where it is. And if you're following along, this is where I want you to start following and doing the same as me. Just set a hot cue here at this point at bar number 105.1. Then the next thing we need to do is find where the significant sounds begin on the track you want to mix in next. So we'll have a listen to this part of the track here. So this is still just drums, there's no bass lines, instruments or vocals, and as we should know it should come in here. We can hear them low frequencies of the bass and then that piano trickling in as well. So just here at this point, which is 9.1 bars, we're just going to set another hot cue here. I'm going to set it at hot cue B. So the track on the left, we're going to do it at hot cue H, and the track on the right at this point here is hot cue B. So what we want to do to make sure we get a perfectly timed mix is make sure that these 2 points in the track where the hot cues are set pass over the playhead at the same time. Now the playhead is the line in the middle of the extended waveform just up here at the top. So we can just see this red line. When the waveform passes over this point, that is what you hear in real time. So we need these 2 points to line up and pass over the middle at the same time for a perfectly timed mix. So how do we do that? One way in which we can do this to make sure they pass over the middle of the playhead at the same time is first on the track on the right that we're mixing in next, just go back to that hot cue and we need to work out how long the intro is of this track. So basically how many 32 beat phrases there is until hot cue B. The easiest way to do this is basically go down here to the right where it says hot cue, just change this to beat jump and it'll open up these buttons just here. You can also do this on your DJ controller as well. If you've got an FLX4, there should be the third option along, should just be beat jump. If you open up this, you should open up these beat jump controls. But just for everyone else at home, I'm just going to use the DJ software and just click on the screen. So from here, I'm just going to use the 32 beat option and jump backwards, which is left, and count how many times it takes me to get to the start of the track. So if I just click this here, it jumps back to the start of the track. So that tells me that is one 32 beat phrase from the start of the track to when the significant sounds come in. So I'm going to back to hot cue here and just set hot cue A at this point. Then what we need to do exactly the same on the left hand side. So the track we're mixing out of, go to hot cue H where the significant sounds end, and then beat jump back one phrase, which is the same length as the intro on Baby Baby. So 132 beats to the left, and then just set another hot cue here, which is going to be hot cue G. Now these two hot cues on the left hand side of each track are what I call timing hot cues. These are what's going to help us get our timing to make sure our mix is timed perfectly. So as this track is playing here on the left hand side, when it gets to hot cue G, I'm going to press play on the track on the right, and then the significant sounds should swap over at the right time. Let's have a listen to that mix, and you can join along at home as well and test this out. Alright, so just as hot cue G comes up here, I'm going to press play on hot cue A, or you just press play at the start of the track. But just watch the timing of these tracks now and have a listen. So just as it gets to the break here, I'm just going to stop the track on the right.
Oh, baby, could you let me know I'm on your mind?
And there you have it. That is a perfectly timed mix, so that when one track's significant sounds ended, the next track's significant sounds began, resulting in no point in that mix where two significant sounds were playing at the same time, and there was also no flat parts where there was just drums playing, which could result in losing energy. So what I've done here is a basic diagram just so that you understand this concept a little bit more. These blocks here on the left hand side represent the end of the track It's Been a While, and then these blocks here on the right hand side represent the start of the track Baby Baby. And what I've done is drawn out the 32 beat blocks just here and what they represent. So it goes from the break, and then we've got three 32 beat phrases of drop section, then the significant sounds end, and then two outro phrases. And at the start of the track Baby Baby, we have one 32 beat phrase of intro beats, then it goes into a drop section which has kick, bass and instruments, and then two of break, and then one in drop. But the main thing to note is that the significant sounds start right here. Now the first example that we did incorrectly, where we press play right on the first beat of the drop section here, which was like this, and we could hear that there was two phrases overlapping there with the same significant sounds, and that is why it sounded bad. Then the second example where we press play at the start of the outro, which looks like this, we can see in the middle we had one phrase of just drums, which sounded quite flat, and it wouldn't be the best to mix to a live audience. And what we just did on the last mix, which was in my opinion the correct way to DJ, is we overlapped the intro with the last drop section, so that when one track's significant sounds ended, the next track's significant sounds began. And this is often how I see mixing in my head, and also how I teach my students in the courses to see the tracks to make sure they get perfect timing, is breaking each track down into 32 beat blocks, noting when the significant sounds end on one track and the significant sounds begin on the other track, and just overlapping them, kind of like Tetris blocks, to make sure they're linked together and have a perfectly timed mix. Now, when DJing, we don't really just want to press play on the next track and let them switch over by themselves. We ideally want to do a little bit of mixing as well and blend the tracks together a little more smoothly. So what I'm going to do is just show you some very basic mixing using only two things, just to make sure that these transitions don't start and end too suddenly and are not as so abrupt for the listener. So the two things that we're going to use today are the channel faders and the low EQ dials. So this time, before we press play on the new track, we're already going to have the channel fader all the way down and also the low EQ dial turned all the way down. Then when we press play on the new track, we're slowly going to introduce it first with the channel fader going from 0 to 100, nice and slow over the first 32 beats of the mix. Then just as the second two hot cues pass over the playhead and the significant sound switch over, we're also going to switch over the low EQ dials as well, effectively switching the basses and the low frequencies of the track. Then we're going to slowly pull the channel fader down on the track that we're mixing out of until it's completely at 0, and hopefully again try and time that within the 32 beat phrase structure. So just as it goes into the break on the new track, this should then be hitting 0. So again, just quickly, it'll go channel fader first, just fade it in nice and slow, switch the low EQ dials halfway through the mix, and then pull the other track out with the channel fader. Now, the reason why we're only using the low EQ dials to mix the tracks and switch them over in the middle is because, as a general rule when DJing and mixing, you only really want one low EQ dial up at a time. This is because the low frequencies carry the most energy in a track. This is mainly where the kick and the bass sit in the track in them low frequencies. And these are also the red colours on the waveforms here at the top and on the full waveforms. The lower frequency sounds have bigger sound waves, and this is why you'll have subwoofers and the bigger speakers for the low frequencies in venues such as clubs and at festivals. This is because they need the bigger speakers to be able to create them bigger sound waves. And if you've noticed, when you're in a nightclub or at a certain venue or festival, when you go to the bathroom or the toilet, you can generally only hear the low frequencies coming through the walls. This is the same as if you have a neighbour that's having a party next door. It's generally only them low frequencies that you can hear coming through the walls, because these are the only frequencies that are strong enough and big enough and most powerful enough to get through and penetrate through those walls. This is one reason why we need to control the low frequencies over the mid and highs. When mixing two tracks together, these are the frequencies that are going to cause the most problems for us if they do clash and overlap with each other. So what I'm going to do now is that exact same mix again with the same timing, but this time do a little bit of mixing with the channel faders and low EQ dials. And if you're following along at home, watch how I do it and then try it just after as well. Let's do it and just listen to how this is a little bit more smoother than the first option. So there you have it, that is a perfect time transition with a little bit of mixing as well, making that transition sound a little bit smoother and just having a better blend from one track into another. Alright, now we're getting the idea of this, let's go back the other way. Let's imagine that the track Baby Baby is playing to the audience and we want to mix out of this track on the right into the track on the left. So we should understand all the principles and the theories now behind a basic timed mix. So the first thing we need to do is find where the significant sounds end on the track Baby Baby. So I'm just going to flick towards the end and have a listen. So we still have some bass line there and I think a little bit of piano, so there's still some significant sounds. A little bit of vocal as well in the background, very pushed far back. And then just there it goes into just drums. So it goes from the drop section into the outro, and just here at bar number 125.1 is where the significant sounds end. So I'm going to set hot cue H just here. Then what we need to do is find where the significant sounds begin on the track It's Been a While. Now this one is slightly different than the track Baby Baby. So let's have a listen to the start. So that's just drums. Let's flick forward a little bit. So that's still just drums. It has a little bit of extra percussion in the background.
It's been a while since I've seen your face.
Alright, into the first significant sounds, which is a piano and vocals. So let's wind this back, and that is just here. Set hot cue. So now we know where we want the tracks to switch over, but we need to get our timing right and set some timing hot cues. So for this, we need to work out how long the intro is on the track It's Been a While. Let's go down here where it says hot cue and just change this to beat jump, and then jump back 32 beat phrases and count how many phrases it is until the start of the track. So I'm going to jump back 1, 2. So this intro is actually 2 phrases long, so 2 32-beat phrases. So let's go back to hot cue and just set hot cue A. Another cool thing you can do here as well, just a little extra, is just right click or secondary click the hot cue and you can add a comment as well. So we can even put that this is 2 phrases. So just a little extra thing that you can do there. So now to make sure our timing's right, we need to do the exact same on the right hand side. Go to hot cue, beat jump, and jump back 2 32-beat phrases. 1, 2. Then let's just go back to hot cue and set hot cue G just here. So now, just like with the other mix, when it gets to hot cue G, we're going to start the track on the left hand side and we should have a well-timed mix. But what you might have noticed is at hot cue B here on It's Been a While, it goes from the intro into a break. Whereas on the track Baby Baby, it goes from an intro into a drop section. So because of that, we're going to have to mix it slightly differently. Over these first 2 phrases here on It's Been a While, I'm just going to still slowly introduce the volume fader with the low EQ dialed down, but as it gets to the last, say, 8 to 4 beats, I'm just going to swap them over a little bit quicker. This is just so that then there's not just drums playing on the track coming in and it will make the mix sound flat. So I'm basically just going to swap the low frequency equalizer dials over a little bit quicker and pull this volume fader out a little bit quicker as well, and it should sound a little bit more smoother. You'll watch how I do it in a moment when I do the mix. Also, in all these mixes we've done up till now, we've also just used the sync button to beat match our tracks. Now, I use the sync button quite a lot when I DJ. I think it's a great tool to use, but quite often people want to know how to manually beat match as well. Now, I'm going to give you a quick alternative here that you can do instead. So I'm just going to turn the beat sync buttons off and put both BPM counters back to 0. So now, as you can see, there's a 2 BPM difference between these 2 tracks, and if we were to press play on both these tracks at these BPMs, it's going to sound really bad and the tracks are going to go out of time with each other. So what we can do here is just basically move this tempo fader on the right hand side to 130 BPM or as close as we can so it matches the deck on the left hand side. Alright, so there we go, I've got 130 BPM, and this time when we press play on the track on the left, we just then need to use the jog wheel on the sides to nudge forwards and backwards to make sure that the white lines match up with each track. So this time when I do the transition, and you can copy this as well, I'm going to press play, use the jog wheel to line up the white lines, and then do the mix. Alright, let's do that mix now, and you can follow along at home and try this yourself. So there you have it, that is another perfectly timed DJ transition, but also with a little bit of beat matching and mixing as well for a smoother transition. So we'll just quickly jump back to the diagram here, just so you fully understand the timing of this mix and the principles. On the left this time we have the track Baby Baby and the outro phrases of the track here. On the right hand side we have the track It's Been a While and the intro phrases of the track, and we can see here on the right it goes from intro straight into the break, and this is where the significant sounds begin. And what we did then is we just laid it over this way so that when the significant sounds end on the track Baby Baby, the significant sounds begin on the track It's Been a While. We did our mix over these 2 intro phrases here, and then when it got to the break here, we stopped this track Baby Baby so it didn't play the outro beats over the break. But that is the basic timing of it, and hopefully these diagrams help you understand the principles behind the timing of a basic time mix as well. Now, even though you now know how to mix these 2 tracks together, and I've shown you a couple of examples and different ways to mix them, it is worth noting that not all tracks have the same structure and will require the same timing. So for example, if I drag another track up here on the right hand side, this one on the right here has 2 phrases until the significant sounds, whereas the hot cues here are set up 1 phrase apart. So these hot cues wouldn't work for this new track. And you also have other tracks that might have 4 phrase long intros or sometimes no intro at all. Another thing to consider is you might not also want to wait until the end of the track when the significant sounds end to do your mix. You might also want to mix in the middle of the track and mix a little bit faster when you DJ live, maybe mix over breaks, create your own mashups, and create your own build-ups as well using the effects. And to do all this effectively, you will need to learn different techniques and different principles of DJing that would take far too long to go over in just one video. And that is exactly why I have created a complete DJ course for beginners. The DJ course covers every single technique that you would need to be able to DJ live and create professional sounding DJ sets. I know because I have put every single technique that I use when I DJ live into that DJ course. And you can also be a complete beginner because I break everything down from start to finish in nice, easy and simple terms. And if we just head over to my website now, and that is the reason why I've called it Complete Beginner to Pro DJ Sets DJ Course. That's because at the end of this DJ course, you should be able to do professional sounding DJ sets even if you're a complete beginner. So if you are interested in an all-in-one solution, just head over to my website in the link in the description to this video, and then just click here on more details. And I would just recommend watching this video here. It's only a few minutes long and it will tell you everything you need to know about the DJ course and give you a full breakdown. But if you do want to continue learning and watch a video from myself, I do have a video that I'm going to put up just here that you can watch to learn how to mix tracks together that have no intro beats at the start of it. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you again in the future. Bye for now.